Children, today we are going to revise the first chapter of history. The chapter name is When, Where, and How. As we know, when, where, and how, under this, Indian history is divided into three parts, as well as European history is also divided into three parts. But time and period are differ from India and Europe, like ancient, medieval, and modern period. Dear student, as we know, in India begins to seventh to uh, begins to 7th century as a ancient period, and medieval period starts from 8th to 18th century. It is divided into two parts, early medieval period and later medieval period. Early medieval period from 8th to 13th century, and later medieval period from 13th to 18th century. Modern period. Modern period start from 18 to till now at present. Dear student, as we know, in Europe, ancient, medieval, and modern period. In Europe, from beginning to fifth centuries is known as ancient period. From 6th to 15th century is known as a medieval period, and from 16th to till now at present is known as a modern period. This data tell us about the earlier earlier development of Europe or European countries than India, like England, France, Germany, etc. It means each and every period first came to Europe than India. That's why Europe is more advanced than India. Roughly more than 2 centuries they are ahead from us. As we know, history is the mother of all subjects. Through that, we have to understand that foreign invaders came to India, like French, British, Portuguese, and Dutch, etc. But finally, British ruled over us more than 200 years due to weaknesses of our center. That's why our constitution maker studied that history and make the center strong. Dear student, in this way, in 1870, James Mill, a Scottish economist and political philosopher, published a massive three-volume work, A History of British India. Is this? He divided Indian history into three periods: Hindu, Muslim, and British period. This period came to be widely accepted. Why do we try and divide history in different periods? Mill, through that, all Asian societies were of a lower level of civilization than Europe. Before the came to India, Hindu-Muslim disputes ruled the country. In this way, the social life British rule Mill felt could civilize India to do this. It was necessary to introduce European manners like arts institution, laws in India. Mill, in fact, suggested that the British should conquer all the territory in India to ensure the enlightenment and happiness of the Indian, enlightenment and happiness of the Indians. And so the dear student, in this way, in this idea of history, British rule represent all the factors of progress and civilization. The period beyond British rule was one. Darkness. Can such a conception be accepted today? After that, what was the colonial rule? In this way, we can understood how the British came to British came to conquer the country and establish their rule. We will see how they established control over the economy and society, collected revenue to meet all their acceptance, etc. Now, one important source is the official records of the British administration. The British believed that the act of writing was important. Every instrument, plan, policy, decision, agreement, in, instigation had to be clearly written up. The British also felt that all important documents and letters needed to be carefully presented to so they set up record rooms attached to all administration institutions, the village tahsildar's office, the collectorate, the commissioner's office, specialized institutions like archives and museums were also established to preserve important records. Preserve important records. In the early year of the 19th century, these documents were carefully copied and out and beautifully written by calligraphies. The British believed that a country had to be properly known before it could be effectively administered. By the early 19th century, detailed surveys were being carried out to map the entire country. In the village revenue sources were conducted. The effort was to know the topography, the soil quality, the flora and fauna, the local historians, and the copywriting, where all the facts as seen as necessary to know about to administration the region. All these sources, however, were produced by these who were literate. From these we will not be able to understand how history was experienced and lived by the tribals and the peasants, the workers in the mines or the poor on the streets, gathering to know their lives as a more difficult task. In this way, dear student, now your homework is to read and write. Learn also questions answers. Thank you, children. This way, dear student, write and learn it. These all questions answers. Thank you, children.